I literally looked up and I said, thank you, God. Because at least I knew that my wife knew that I was alive. And that, was a heavy burden lifted off of me. Because, I knew I was alive. I was there. She had no idea. So at least she knew I was alive. So that was good. We continued on down. We got down to about the 50th floor. And Virginia says to me, Ari, I can't go on. Can't do it. My first instinct was, I'll have her sit down. We'll rest a little bit. And then we'll get up and keep going. And I thought to myself, you know what? If she sits down, she may never get up. And if she doesn't get up, there is a good chance she is going to die. And that was not on my agenda for the day, I have to admit. So I said to her, no, Virginia, you can do this. And we had some bottles of water that we poured into her mouth to give her to drink, and we poured it on her arms to try and relieve the burns. And now I'm coaching. I'm counting the floors down, 45, 44, 42. We're doing great. We're doing great. We were doing great until 38. 38 was backed up with people. What had happened was the firefighters were coming up. So they stopped the people from going down so that they can get up. And I'm starting to get really scared. She's a wreck. She is in very, very bad shape. And as a matter of fact, when we got to that crowd of people, some woman turned around and saw her, and she went like, oh! And Virginia looks at me, she says to me, Ari, how bad is it? I said, Virginia, you look great. You're fine. I needed to keep her spirits up. But I'm running scared. So I started to yell out, is there a paramedic in the building? I said, I have a burn victim here. We need medical attention. If you're a paramedic, please come and help us. If not, please step to the right and let us through. And they did. People squeezed over as much as they possibly could, and they literally opened a path so that we can go down. And we continued on down. We got down to about the 8th floor. There was water all over the place. And I mean ankle-deep water. You see, the sprinklers worked very well on the lower floors where there was no fire. They were totally knocked out. When the plane hit, they totally knocked out everything that was on those floors. But down below, a lot of water. And I'll never forget, I was wearing a brand new pair of pants that day. And I said to myself, if anything happens to these pants, my wife is going to kill me. The fear of the woman. So I did this. Honestly, I did this. And I started to go down because I didn't want to ruin my pants. That lasted about a flight, and I said, you know what, if I get out of here, I'll deal with my wife later. And we continued down. We got down to the 1st floor, and the fire warden who's leading us continues to go down. I said, where are you going? He goes, we have to get out through the garage. I turned to Virginia. I said, we already went down 7, 8 flights of stairs. What's another 4 or 5? And we continued on down. We got down about 2 flights when all of a sudden the door on the 1st floor opens up and some guy yells out, where are you people going? I said, we're going out through the garage. He says, no, you can't get out through the garage. You have to come back up here and come out through the 1st floor. I turned to Virginia. I said, we got to go back up. She said a few things that I can't say in mixed company or in any company, and we headed back up. What I heard later was there were people in that garage that never got out. Who was the guy who opened the door? I have no idea. I never saw him. I only heard a voice. And why did he pick that moment to open the door? I have no idea. But that guy saved our lives that day. When we got out, I'm looking around. I'm trying to figure out where we are because everything looks so strange. And I realized we're by the coffee station. That's where I bought my coffee every morning, right by the lobby of One World Trade. I figured to myself, great. We go through the revolving doors, through the lobby, out the revolving doors, out into the street, fastest way out of the building. But there were police and firefighters there, and they were telling us to go the other way, to go through the mall, to go through the atrium, to go through the stores, all the way. It was a long walk, and she was not in good shape. But I'm a good citizen, so of course I listened to them, and I'm very happy that I did, because had we gone out the way I wanted to go out, it would have put us out on West Street. You know what was going on West Street? That's where the people were jumping. I thank God every day. Because I'll tell you something, I saw it on TV. As a matter of fact, the New York Post, to this day, I remember that picture. The New York Post had a front page of a guy floating in the air who had jumped. If I would have seen that live, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be in an insane asylum. I never would have been able to deal with it. So I thank God every day they were there telling us to go the other way. As we're walking through, it was literally raining inside because of the sprinklers. Virginia said to me, every time a drop hit her arm, she said it was like a knife going through her arm. That's how bad it was. And she says to me, Ari, please call my mom. Tell her I'm okay. I said, Virginia, give me the number. I'll punch it into my phone. But I recommend we get out of the building first. And we did. We got out, let us out on Church Street, and the police and firefighters were there telling everybody, uptown, uptown, everybody, uptown, uptown. People were running uptown. I stopped the cop and I said, excuse me, I have a burn victim here. Where do we go? What do we do? He says to me, across the street in front of the Millennium Hotel, they're setting up a triage center there. There are going to be ambulances there. Bring her over there. So I crossed the street, brought her in front of the Millennium Hotel. Sure enough, an ambulance pulls up. I help her into the ambulance, and I breathe a sigh of relief. Because at least I know now that she's getting medical help. I can keep her spirits up. Psychologically, I can help her. But physically, nothing I can do. Now she's getting help. I breathe a sigh of relief. I step out of that ambulance. I turn around. I look up at the buildings. And I turn to a guy standing next to me. I said, excuse me, how did Building 2 get on fire? The guy looks at me like I'm crazy. You see, I never heard the second plane. People look at me like I'm nuts. They say, what do you mean you never heard the second plane? It was right next door. How do you? I don't know. Maybe it was just because I was so focused on the task at hand that I just blocked everything else out. That's all I had. I knew what my job was, and that's what I did. I looked at the guy. He says to me, 2 jetliners went into the buildings. They're calling it a terrorist attack. I'm going like, what are you talking about? What are you, crazy? Now I'm really scared. I'm trying to call my wife, can't get through. Trying to call Virginia's mom, can't get through. I don't know what to do. I finally turn around to the ambulance driver. I said, why aren't you leaving? This woman's, she's seriously burned. He goes, we can't leave until we fill the ambulance. We're expecting a huge amount of casualties, and we have to fill the ambulance. They wouldn't even let her lay down. She had to sit up. The unfortunate thing was that there really weren't that many casualties. You were either very, very much dead or very, very much alive. There wasn't a whole lot in between. I remember when we got to St. Vincent's Hospital, they were there waiting. They had the gurneys, they had the nurses, the doctors, everything. They were lined up, they were waiting. Not a whole lot of people showed. So she's writhing in pain. I'm trying to keep her spirits up. They finally fill the ambulance, and the guy says, okay, we can go. And I'm thinking, thank God. And Virginia turns to me and she says to me, Ari, you're coming with us. Now, I don't want to say I was in a comfort zone because of what was going on, but the reality is I knew where I was. And if I had to get anywhere else from that point, I would know how to get there because I knew the area. The thought of getting into an ambulance and going God knows where, because I had no idea where they were going to take her, on that day didn't excite me. Second of all, as soon as she's gone, you know where I'm going. I'm going back to the building because I'm looking for my friends, I'm looking for my coworkers, I'm looking up. I'm not going anywhere. I said to Virginia, you don't need me anymore. I'm going to get a hold of your mom. She's going to meet you in the hospital. You're going to be okay. She turns to the ambulance driver. She says, we're not leaving unless he comes with us. And I look at the ambulance driver, and he looks at me, and I see it in his eyes, and he's thinking, this is not a cab service. But I look at him, and I say, you know what? Maybe for her own psychological benefit, maybe I should come. He says to me, fine, hop into the front. And I got into the front of that ambulance, and we pulled away. We're one of only a few ambulances that actually got away from the scene that day. If you ever go to the 9/11 museum, you will see a crushed ambulance at the museum. I have friends who work for Volunteer Ambulance Corps who showed me pictures of crushed ambulances. Who saved whose life? She thanks me every single day for saving her life, and I say to her, you got it all wrong. If she wouldn't have insisted that I get into that ambulance, I would have been standing at the base of that building when it came down, and I would be dead. There was no question in my mind. But she insisted I get into that ambulance. And that's why I'm here today telling you a story. Who saved whose life? We pulled away, and I'll never forget, we didn't take the highway, we took city streets to get to St. Vincent's Hospital, and all along the entire route, all you saw were people gaping, mouths open with video cameras and still cameras and digital cameras. Unbelievable. We got to St. Vincent's Hospital, and I helped bring her in, and they started asking questions, and I knew all of her information by now because we had told her so many times. And then finally, the guy looks at me, and he says to me, what about, are you a relative? I go, no, I'm her coworker. I help bring her in. He goes, you can't stay. You have to leave. Leave? What are you talking about? They said, I'm sorry, hospital policy. I couldn't believe it. Even in that situation with what was going on, you're going to be a stickler for hospital policy for, I'm the only one she's got? Didn't matter. They threw me out. I said, Virginia, I'll get a hold of your mom. She's going to be here soon. You're going to be okay. And I walked out of the hospital. And as I walk out, all of a sudden, I hear somebody behind me go, wow, did you hear? Tower 2 collapsed. And from St. Vincent's Hospital, you had a clear view straight down to the Trade Center. And sure enough, Tower 2 was gone. Gone. 107 stories of building, 50,000 square feet per floor, and it was gone. I had a pit in my stomach like you wouldn't believe. I couldn't have imagined something like that happening. And I'm looking for a phone, right? My cell phone is, I'm looking for a payphone. A payphone. When was the last time anybody in this room used the payphone? People look at me like I'm crazy. But I needed to get a hold of somebody. All of a sudden, this guy is walking down the street, and he's talking on his cell phone. And I remember thinking to myself, when this is all over, I'm going to find out who his carrier is, and I'm going to switch to them. I ran over to the guy, says, excuse me, can I use your phone? It's an emergency. And the guy says to me, yeah, sure. He says, listen, some guy needs my phone. I'll call you back. And he hangs up the phone. He hands me the phone. And I dialed, and the first person I called was Virginia's mom. I told this to my wife 6 months later. She was so mad. She goes, why didn't you call me first? I said, I promised I'd call her mom. So I dialed the phone. I go, hi, Mrs. DiChiara. My name is Ari Schonbrun. I'm a coworker of your daughter, Virginia. She is alive, but she is severely